Minnesota, okay? So let's go through this. Rob, I think you got a couple clips on this. President Trump on Thursday tweeted this, or Truth Social this. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE, who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention, Donald J. Trump. And how do you feel about this?
Of course he should do this, and I don't even think he needs to invoke the Insurrection Act. It's funny how the New York Times avoids talking about the two most famous incidents of presidents sending troops against the wishes of a state's governor, Eisenhower sending them to Little Rock because to walk 9 black school children into the school. Why? Because they were disobeying federal law. It was a Supreme Court ruling. You can't discriminate. The governors, the mayors were saying, we're going to keep discriminating. And so Eisenhower sends, the 101st Airborne to walk these 9 black. And then JFK did the same thing in Alabama, directly against the governor. The governor called out his own national troops, George Wallace, famous name. That was to walk 2 students into University of Alabama. So we have 9 sad black students, 2 sad black students, and of course the Constitution and federal law being violated. And they go down in history as heroes. Minnesota is violating federal law. Immigration law is federal. The Supreme Court has held this 1,000,000 times. They did it, I'll just say briefly, because it's recent. I mean, I've been alive in America for more than 2 weeks. When Arizona passed that, what everybody called the Papers, Please law, you'll remember that, it's like Nazi Germany, which was upheld by the Supreme Court, at least that one provision. The rest of the law was overturned. All Arizona had said is, we want to comply with the federal government. We're going to help. We aren't going to do anything that federal immigration law doesn't say, but we're going to help enforce federal immigration law. Obama was president, and he sued saying, I don't want to enforce federal immigration law. The Supreme Court says federal government wins. So absolutely he has constitutional authority to do this. And if you look at how the governor and the mayor are behaving, I mean, just today, I think the governor, Tim Walz, said Minnesota is an island. Well, no, you're not an island from federal law.
Did he really say he's an island?
Yes. That's like seceding from the Union. Of course he should send federal troops.
Wow. Tom, your thoughts on this?
Well, you and I lived in Los Angeles at a time in 1992, which was also a time that the Insurrection Act was under the riots, Rodney King. And the city was being torn apart. The police were overwhelmed. And when the police are overwhelmed, that's when the National Guard comes in. This is when, look, a hurricane or an earthquake happens and our governors say, hey, we have a disaster area. I need you to declare me a disaster area so that I can get federal funds. And by the way, can you please send relief people, troops, supplies, whatever it is. And so, we'll ignore the failure of Hurricane Katrina. But in Los Angeles, we had Korean shopkeepers that were on top trying to protect their own buildings. And it was invoked at that time appropriately. This is exactly when it should be invoked. And it's interesting that everybody's clinging to the word insurrection in the media because that was the word they clung to on January 6th because they had to make it an insurrection because an insurrection is the operative term that was in the Constitution that they wanted to pin on, you've created an insurrection, on Trump. So when you look at this, I think not only is this appropriate, it is not appropriate, it's urgent, it's obligatory. It's not should Trump do it, it's why is he waiting for any opinion to say this is out of control here and I have to protect the people of the state because it's the union. It's one of the states of the union, so I got to step in here.
I think he's late. This should have happened the day after the incident happened with Be Good, whatever, Renee Good with the pin wearing. But can we just take a step back? Like
Martyr du jour.
Yeah, exactly. We're watching a state. This is. Look at the timeline. A state that was just exposed for one of, if not the biggest fraud scandals in the history of the United States. Scott Bessent came out and said 10% of our money is going to fraud. $600 billion a year. And is it just a coincidence that all this stuff is happening here, that they've energized these people? By the way, this isn't happening organically? You think these people with all the same signs, all the same movement? Kash Patel came out yesterday and said, if you think this is just organic, you're insane, and they're going to go after all of them.
600 billion.
600
Rob,
billion.
do you have that clip?
$600 billion a year. This is it right here.
Investigations, and these men and women, they are cool cats. They can take apart a balance sheet, and they can knock down a door and arrest someone. Like, they go out on patrols, they can make arrests. It's this very interesting hybrid force, about 2,500 of them, and they led the charge here. So it was IRS CIs who uncovered the initial fraud and the prosecutions. So it's with that group, with other groups at IRS, and with the powers of the Treasury to track where the money came from, where it's going. We saw this very unsettling news yesterday that many people involved here with the administration of these programs have tried to go back and they recreate documents, change documents.
Rob, when does he say 600 billion?
We're not going to have that. We are going to hold people accountable. We're going to press this to the full extent possible. And like I said, I think that this may just be, it's a cold day outside, so this could be the tip of the iceberg here in Minnesota, but it's probably may not be as prevalent, but the dollars may be bigger and larger in other states. And just to put this in perspective for American taxpayers, for American families, the GAO, the General Accounting Office, believes that there is somewhere between 300 and 600 billion of annual fraud, roughly 10% of government spending.
10%.
That disappears due to fraud. If we can recapture that.
You can pause that right there.
so
how do you not track that, though?
How do
you not track that and find out who it's
Government.
going to?
Well, wasn't that Doge?
Intentionally.
Wasn't Doge's job supposed to go in, find all this situation, and just really quick, Pat, if you, because this is where I'm coming from, I'm putting two to two together. They just got exposed. So instead of going, yeah, guys, let's just face the fire, they take this moment, and because they were pushing it. Tim Walz is like, the Gestapo, this is one of those moments like in House of Cards where they sit there and they wait for a moment to happen and they capitalize. This is their moment. Now it's, hey, don't worry about the fraud. It's Trump is a Nazi. These people are Gestapo. And I just hope that, I know Kash Patel said he's going to be looking into it. Like I said last week, I don't care about basketball gambling. That's a whole different situation. This is hundreds of billions of dollars a year. This is what we care about, and this is all a show to distract everybody from what the real problem is, and that's the problem. They've imported all they're not working, Pat. They're sitting there and they're scamming us, and nobody's going to care about it. I'm sorry.
It's a loop. And the loop we saw over Ukraine. Ukraine gets a bunch of money, but a lot of it's allocated for defense. It comes right back to General Dynamics and Boeing and Northrop
Money
Grumman,
laundering.
and all them comes back. They then send equipment to Ukraine. Now they have these billions of dollars. They say thank you through a lobbyist. They say thank you through a PAC. And now the money that Senator Blowhard voted to send to Ukraine has made a loop back, and Senator Blowhard has got PAC money and campaign money back in. And it is an eternal cycle, and that's how they keep stasis. That is their stability, these cycles. And now all they've done in Minnesota is it wasn't a foreign war. It was a systemic fraud loop that they created, except now the unintended consequence, which the creators or the intentional closed eyes created, was money went to Al-Shabaab, and then some of that money came back. So all of a sudden, in closed rooms, you gotta believe that Walz and others in closed rooms is like, crap.
Well, let me do this before I come.